All right, how's it going, everyone? We're live. It is Sunday morning, and we're gonna do some dog fooding. So thanks for joining. If you're just tuning in for the first time, basically this is kind of the app that we have going so far, and it looks kind of good going from left to right, and there's still this like weird bug where the poster kind of flips in and out as we go from right to left. So we'll try to tweak that a bit, and we'll be, I don't know, we'll probably be playing with some other interactions today from this. Let me try and pull up the, yeah, so this is the sort of design that we're going off of from this dribble page here. And you can see that there's a page transition when you hit buy tickets going from one screen to the other that is pretty neat, pretty complex, and I think today maybe we'll start trying to tackle that. Got it, I think. Oh. So where is it? Like right there, yeah. Definitely a lot of stuff going on, and so that'll be kind of a fun thing to build. We'll probably use the transition API if you're not familiar with it. And you know, the navigational transitions are still going to be difficult in Compose at the moment. I think that there's a few fundamental APIs that we're missing. But it's fine. We want to see like what's possible right now, and it'll also help kind of clarify what is needed. Let's see. Hey Rashawn, hey Evan, hey Wasif. Nice to see you all here. Okay, so we go into Android Studio. This is kind of what we had so far. Hey Sky Color. So one of the things I want to do first is like figure out this bug with like the jank on the actual going left to right, where the wrong poster ends up on top, right on only on the exact one. So let's try and figure that out first. And I think in order to do that, hey Cyrus, I'm gonna focus on like cleaning up some of this code, just because some of the logic got pretty hairy, and you know, we spent a lot of time last time just like, you know, kind of at least myself racking my brain against like what was happening here. And so I think there's some refactors that we can do to make it a little more clear. Hey Robin. So let's start working on that. Someone actually commented on YouTube with like a pretty good idea, which basically, like, you know, for each one of these, just have a sort of like a left index and a right index to indicate the, you know, the two movies that you're between, so to speak. So let's try that. I think basically, okay, so index fraction, we have already, and so I think we can basically just do you know, like a floor index fraction, say like left index and right index as a ceiling of the index fraction. Quick question, how do I pass the colors to typography in my app theme? I want to define that H1 is a primary color, but that color depends on the colors. So let's just check that out real quick. Really want Kotlin.math. It always shows up as double, which doesn't seem right. Yeah, I guess the float overload is just like hidden for some reason. So if we go in our like template right now, which this is like just the default template, we go to like our dog food theme. So you're asking, you made this typography here, but you want to pass the colors in to while defining the typography. And so that should be like somewhat easy to do. If you just go into here, instead of defining like a typography top level constant, you know, you could just have it be like a function, colors, and then use those in here if you wanted. So that would be one way to do it. And you could also just, like, depending on if your colors are changing or not, like, where do we define? So you know, we're creating these dark and light color palettes here, and like if you only had one color palette or something like that, then you know, you could just use that here as you're defining typography, and then typography would end up using those constants. But if it was dynamic, like in the case of, you know, the light and dark or whatever, you could have, like, if that was your dynamicism, just there's a light color palette and a dark color palette, then you could have like a light typography and a dark typography if you wanted. And then, you know, just like we're switching on colors here, we could also switch on the typography, do the same thing. So it just depends what you need. But, you know, basically we're inside of a composable function here, and so, you know, whatever dynamic logic we want to do in here is totally fine. Is ambient scoped or are they global? So like the primary purpose of an ambient, I guess, is to scope it, is so for it to be scoped to a composable hierarchy. So that's sort of like the purpose of them is it's like one of the names that we thought about calling ambient is a tree local, or like composable local. We ended up not using that name because we felt like it might create other confusion, but like that just sort of demonstrates the scoped nature of them. So anyway, hope that answers your question. So now if we have this like left and right index, I think what we can do is, you know, we can say when index equals left index, or not equal to left index, and index not equal to right index. So basically we're doing nothing when it's one of these two things. And then we want to, so we should be able to cast these as ints. Hackertronics says, "Hey Leland, I've been playing with Compose and I can't figure out the alternative to View Property Animator. I need to rotate a card on clicking a button, let's say. How would I create that in Compose without using transitions or state?" So we'll go, I mean, basically the View Property Animator, you know, in Compose, there isn't an equivalent in the sense that, like, well, one, we don't have views and they don't have properties, and so like we have composable functions, and the properties or property equivalents are parameters to those functions. And so when you call a composable, you can give it you know, a static value or a value that changes over time. And in the case of an animation, that's like a value that changes over time. And so we have some ways of defining animated values that are like, you know, help you do convenient, obvious things. So like one thing, you know, you could say rotation, and we have this animated value composable, which allows you to define like an initial value, and you know, there's you don't see all of the drop down, but so you can use this, and there's several like overloads. Like if it was just a float property, which like rotation probably would end up being a float of like degrees, then you can use animated float, and by default these sort of these kind of work how you'd want them to. And then animated float is gonna give you lots of other so like you can say snap to, or like fling, so you can you know, basically send it with a starting velocity and some you know, other configuration if you need to, and it will kind of behave like a you know, basically like it's obeying some physics-based decay, and you know, you can do a lot of stuff like that. So that's probably what you're looking for. Yeah, and then as Gurupreet mentions, we also have this animate function, which ends up using animated value under the hood. But so here I'm using this draw layer modifier. If I wanted to add a rotation here, I could just like pin it to, you know, to some specific rotation, or maybe, you know, this is some calculation, so, you know, it's 100 times my you know, whatever it might be, like, you know, maybe an index or something like that. And then if index changes over time, then this rotation will change over time. But in this case, now you're going immediately from like one rotation value to 100 degrees different from it, and that won't be like a smooth transition. But if I added animate here, then that would smoothly animate it as it changes, and so that would be also a way to accomplish that. And so hopefully that answers your question, but let me know if it does not. Hey Dev Souza, how's it going? Good to see you. Alejandro says, "Hi, my favorite YouTuber." I appreciate that. Alejandro asks, "What do you think about the use of ambience for navigation purposes?" I mean, I think I would need a more specific question. I think that a solid navigation solution will inevitably use ambience, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking. And so, you know, in general, for ambience, there are like a few guidelines that I think people should generally follow. Is well, in addition to just like not using them for too many things, but when you do use ambience, I think it's really important that an ambient always be resolvable. So it should have like a sane default. So if an ambient has like a good default value, then it kind of makes sense, like, because then you're giving people the ability to provide like a different value. But if you didn't do that, then the default would be used and it'll sort of work fine. So ambients should have default values, and if they don't have default values, it should be structured in a way that like that ambient is always going to be available, so that you never end up in this situation where like you're sort of forcing them to provide something and it's like an implicit dependency that you weren't aware of. And so there are a lot of ambients that we provide, like Compose UI, that don't have sensible defaults, but also we've made it incredibly difficult to get into a situation where they're not defined, because essentially all of the like kickoff functions that sort of start off a composition, like set content and things like that, they always provide these ambients. And so it would be very difficult for you to find yourself in a composable that didn't have those ambients resolvable. And so those are sort of the exceptions, I guess, to that rule. But anyway, yeah, I think there's a good chance that a navigation solution would use some ambience, but maybe not in the way that you're wondering or asking about. Okay. So I think now in this case, so I think this is kind of the trick here, is we're gonna say if index equals left index, like basically it'll always be the left one that's visible. Otherwise have no opacity, so be hidden. Joe NRV says, impressed with your daily streaming consistency. We have schedule functionality so you can set up a streaming calendar in advance. PS, take some off days. Yeah, so I do have, maybe you're talking about something else, but we, or I have like a schedule set up on my Twitch. That is what I'm currently trying to follow. If there's some way to use that I'm like not right now, definitely let me know. But yeah, I am doing that, and I am taking some days off. So right now it's 4 days a week, so that's 3 days off that I have a week. But I might change the schedule a little bit. I'm sort of finding some things work, some things don't, personally, like, and just we'll see over time. But I am trying to make the schedule be the source of truth. So if I change the schedule, then we'll change my sort of streaming cadence there. Okay, cool. All right, so now in these cases we should have so we should be able to say, so if index is less than or equal to index fraction, so that should be index equals left index, right? And then this should be index equals right index. And then actually we can just have this be the else case, which I think is a little bit less clunky. So this kind of is like that. So does this make sense? The fraction, index fraction minus index. Yeah, I think this makes sense. And then, so theoretically, we might not need this coerce in anymore. I'm not sure that was doing anything for us. So this would end up just being fraction here, and then fraction here. And then does this make sense? So I think we could do right index minus index fraction, I think, which that's index fraction. Oh, and then this will end up being index. Oh, so is this wrong? So no, I think it's right. Let's see if that works. Let's move this down here. All right, so fingers crossed. Let's see if this fixes the bug. Uh-oh. That didn't work. Where's our logcat? Try that again. Resource overlays. That's weird. That maybe isn't. Never seen this before. Has anyone seen this before? Create app context. Wonder, I might try uninstalling. Let's see. Have it install fresh. Hey, Nicholas, how's it going? Okay, that looked more successful. Now this, yeah, a little more common than the compiler stuff. Reinstall helps. Okay, yeah, it looks like that fixed it, so that's good. So now it does seem like there's some jank here. So because it's not. So as we're going. We've hidden the visibility, so this is wrong, which makes sense. So I think what we want is index. This right index, and left index does not equal right index. Yeah, I think that will be sufficient. Let's see. Basically, what I think is happening is well, basically before I was only making the image visible if it was the left image, which makes sense that wouldn't work. But the reason I was doing that was because I only ever want, like, basically if index equals the index fraction, then I think left index and right index are going to be the same. And what I wanted to do was prevent like the right index image from showing in that case. And actually I guess so, if index fraction is an exact integer, then left and right index are going to be the same, which means that only one image is going to be visible anyway. And so I actually think we'll be good actually with just this. So let's try that. Yeah, I think it's so. Sky Color says, I think it's cool that one way of debugging is creating a preview for that component and then passing your values into that composable to like see different configurations. And yeah, that's definitely you know, a great way to do this. I haven't been using the preview for a couple of reasons. One, because we're doing a lot of gesture stuff, and I think that the emulator is going to be better for that. And then the other reason is that the preview at the moment doesn't show remotely downloaded images, and that kind of hurts our. It hurts us a lot. So. Ooh, okay, so this is now happening consistently on the second build, which that's not good. So let me try uninstalling again. Well, that'll be kind of annoying if that's okay. So this is now wrong. Which it looks like I guess I messed this up. So let's just go back and steal that. So I guess this is different enough that it matters. So we'll try that. And I wonder if this build is going to crash again because of this like new instance thing. Yeah, ugh, this is not good. Has anyone seen this issue? And like, if so, if there's a fix other than uninstalling? Interesting that it's doing like resource overlays, state loader. I wonder if it, cause yeah, I think it looks like some tooling is doing some reflection, and then there's probably some class that doesn't exist. So it's probably like me using an out, like some version of something that's not new enough. Yeah, maybe we should try upgrading to Alpha 3. It's probably what's going on. All right, well, so I wasn't planning on doing that on stream, but you know, why not? Oh, my hotkeys are still not here. So, bummer. Okay, so let's do Alpha 3. And is that all I needed to change? Let's see. I'm just using compose version here. I probably need to change coil. So let's go and look that up real quick. goes. Where does it say which version goes with which version? The release listings have it. Okay, so this works with Alpha 3, so 0.2.2. Let's update that. And then I wonder if I should core KTX. Lifecycle material. Let's just see if that works. Hi from Bulgaria. Hey, Zilyasko. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Let me know. Right now, you are creating as many coil image instances for the background poster as the number of movies. Wouldn't that result in performance issues if you have a lot of movies? Yes, it would. There's a couple ways to think about. I mean, right now, it's creating coil image for each one, but I also don't want, as I'm like flipping through things, I don't want to be loading the image as it comes like onto screen, and so I'd rather load all of the images so that they're in memory and then flip through them. One thing we might improve is like you could you could do something where it downloaded all of the images, but it didn't create a coil image for each one, and then you just changed you basically had 2 coil images, and then you updated the resource under the hood. But that's not something that I'm gonna worry about at the moment. Right now, like, we just have some test data, and there's only 3 movie posters, and it's fine. So SC2 Plasmid says, are we taking over the world of dog food by dog fooding our own software libraries? Yeah, well, so the phrase dog fooding, I think it normally refers to you, like by dog fooding you're using something that you built but as a user, and so I think it would typically be our own software libraries. The V41N says, sorry for the noobish question, what mobile app framework are you using? So I'm using Jetpack Compose. It's a new declarative UI toolkit for Android that I work on, and so that's sort of the more or less the purpose of this channel is to play around with Compose. Yeah, we could pre-download the images as we do in view world lists. By the way, you did great by pronouncing my name. Oh, great. What phone is that? That's a good question. So it's actually I'm using a special phone from Google that is configured in a way that makes it really low performance, and so it's got a fixed, like, locked single core, and the hardware on it is like representative of what we would think of as like sort of lower end Android devices. And so this is one of the phones that we run benchmarks on and stuff like that, and it's just a good phone, I think, for me to use to make sure that Compose, still does okay with lower end devices. Could we use something like Lazy Road to improve performance here? You could. I mean, right now there's only 3 movies, so it's definitely not. Yeah, I think it's related to Android Go. I don't want to use like internal code names and stuff because I don't know what is public or not, but basically it's a lower end phone that I'm using. Yeah, so I don't think that Lazy Row is something that I'm gonna play around with here. Just I'm not sure that it's important for this example, but we could, if we wanted to, you know, introduce some laziness into the rendering here. If we had, you know, a very long list of movies, for instance. Okay, so I don't even remember what we were doing. Okay, so we did a Gradle sync. Let's see if I build if we have any issues here. I assume some things are going to be, well, some things will be deprecated, I guess. I'm not sure if they'll be broken. Is the emulator based on the open source Cuttlefish? To be honest with you, I don't know. But so to be clear, this isn't an emulator. This is a device that I have with me here. Okay, so it looks like at least, I mean, so at the very least that built. So now we're good. There's oh no, we still have some. Oof. What is going on? Why? So if the index equals the left index, I mean, maybe I'll try bringing back in that like coerce stuff here. That might be helping us. Oh, I think it's still broken. Yeah, so that didn't fix that problem. That's a bummer. Okay. I guess we'll have to reinstall, but the sky color says looks like this is happening because of auto snapping the movie in the center, and it's skipping the fractionals. Well, I think what's happening is that there's, as it comes to rest on an exact integer, then the wrong movie poster is being shown. So WDroid says, hi, in the sample app crane, the bottom sheet collapses when I try to just scroll the elements in there. What's the best way to report it? So if you go to google.compose feedback, so this short link, that should be a good place to report bugs. You have to uninstall, reinstall every time. You might want to try ADB Idea. It's a plugin. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I should find out what's actually causing this. It looks like this is. And so this resource overlays thing, I'm not sure what that is. But it looks like that's you know, some tooling that's breaking here. And I'm not sure which class it's trying to instantiate. If I did, then that might tell us what thing we should update. Let's just see if this shows up on Google. This is gonna get a bunch of like unrelated stuff. I think this is what's going on here. Looks like there aren't any great matches for your search. All right, well that's good. Runtime resource overlays. All right, yeah, I don't know what's causing this. We can, you know, just deal with it, I guess. Nice, I broke Google, yeah. So Skycolor says it started when you changed the fractionals if cases. You mean this? Because I mean, so I think that this particular issue has been happening, but we just, you know, it was like a problem before we started the stream, before I changed anything. I was just hoping that this refactor would actually fix that bug. So yeah, it's only coming from this side. Okay, so it looks like I can trigger it. I'm moving it. Delyasko says, by the way, what camera are you using? The picture quality is great, not like the MacBook's webcam. Yeah, so I'm using it's a Canon M50 with a Sigma 16mm f1.4 lens. So yeah, definitely better than the MacBook webcam. The clip rectangle gets inverted. Yeah, that is what it seems like is happening. So like I wonder if it hit this case, I wonder what happens then. How are you mirroring your device? I'm using an app called Visor, which is kind of like a screen copy, but it does a really good job. I really like it, but it does cost money. So SC2 Plasma asks, "Are you streaming on OBS?" Yes, I am. I'm using OBS for this. Sergey asks, "Is debugging of composable functions different from debugging regular code, or is it like from coroutines?" Debugging coroutines is not always easy. So there are still sort of like some rough spots, but and actually this is what so the last time I did this, there was an issue with my local setup where I wasn't able to debug, but I think I might have fixed it. So let me try that, because that would actually make a lot of this a lot easier. But let me first try running this. Interesting. So it's now oh, you know what it is, I bet. Yeah, I think this is it. So shoot, I should have thought of this earlier. I think this is actually related to coil. I think coil still has the old image, and so this is like when it switches from image to image. So I'm actually gonna try this. I think, yeah, that'll be kind of interesting if this works. I'll try and explain why, if it does. Gosh, I wish this whole like resource overlay thing wasn't an issue. This is really making some things kind of rough. So Samuel asks, can you tell us about the story around navigation for Jetpack Compose? Sample libs have homegrown code. Yeah, sure. So, well, first let's just see if this fixed it. Well, it did not really. Alright. This is kind of frustrating. I'll need to... Alright. I'm at a loss. I don't want to waste too much time on this on stream though, but... Okay, so Samuel had a question. Can you tell us about the story around navigation for Jetpack Compose? Yeah. So basically, I mean, there, we want to have a good navigation solution for Compose, but it wasn't kind of like a top priority for like the API surface for navigation. It might be big, and it's not strictly needed, like, because you can sort of do navigation the old way, the standard way, or any way you want really, and you can just use Compose to create views. And so then you could have, like, for instance, like a fragment or an activity for every screen and sort of work that way, and that works just fine. And some of the samples don't do that. And honestly, I'm not really sure why. I wasn't really involved in the decisions for for how to architect those apps and things like that. And that's probably what I would have done in the samples. And I think that's in my opinion what people should be doing right now, because navigation is hard and complicated, and you can do it in Compose, but I guess no one yet is doing it right, and so unless you want to invest the time to do that, then then using like existing mature navigation solutions, and then just composing each screen independently, I think is probably the better thing to do at the moment. And then we're working on the navigation architecture component. Has it's gonna have like this Compose extension module for it, which will make working with Compose using the navigation architecture component work really well. And I think that'll be a really good option. It should be coming out soon. And who knows? I mean, someone in the user space might end up making a really good navigation solution. And I hope they do. But right now the sample apps don't. I think the way they do navigation isn't really a great demonstration of like what you as users should do. And so I'm kind of bummed that that's true. But yeah, I don't know. That's the current state of the world. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I've not seen you use Compose constraint layout yet. I really like it and makes working with complex layouts much easier. Wonder why you do not use it more. Yeah, so I think it's great too. The API for it I think is really nice in Compose. I haven't used it yet. In this sample, I mean, this is a pretty small sample, but I'm also less interested in providing feedback for its API. So Skycolor says, did you misread the question or did I? Which question did I misread? Oh, I see. You said check out constraint layout. Gotcha. So yeah. So if there's a mock-up or something that I think would really benefit from constraint layout, then I might use it in here. But I haven't used it yet in this sample just because it didn't seem like the right tool for the job for anything so far. And that's all. Okay. So this was not the issue. Little key thing. So I'm gonna remove that. I think for now I'm gonna spend some of my own time later trying to figure out what's going on with the with like the image flip thing that's happening. But I think maybe for now let's just move on to some of the other stuff so that it's a little more interesting for all of you. Dushin asks, how tricky is it to bind state management with Compose? I guess it's not tricky, at least not from my perspective. If there's a particular thing that you're asking about, like using if there's a particular goal, I can I could maybe try to go more into an example, but overall, you know, the things that you use probably work just fine. Okay, so let's see. What do we want to do? I'm gonna. Oh, this is bothering me a lot. Well, let's look at the mock-up here. So I think I might raise the poster up a bit and then add this buy tickets button, and then we can start trying to play around with this transition. I think that'd be a good idea. Although in the meantime, maybe we try and like clean up some of this code, because this is actually getting you know, kind of crazy right now. So let's do that, because basically at the moment, like I'm kind of just doing a lot of work in this screen composable, and kind of, you know, mixing some responsibilities here. And so ideally we would have like some sort of a you know, a carousel like composable that kind of handled this itself, like all of this index logic and stuff. It shouldn't be a concern of mine, like from just like building the app kind of perspective. So let's try and tweak that a bit. Let's imagine like what sort of an API we would want. Fun. Let's call this you know, well, I'm just gonna call it carousel. It might deserve like a more specific name, because it's like a very particular kind of carousel, but you know, that's all right. And I'm gonna move all this in here basically, and let's start trying to take some stuff out. So let's imagine that this just received like an API of like, you know, a list of items. And then so we'd end up replacing like movies with items here. And then what I kind of want to do is I want to give it a basically there's going to be a few like content composables. So like background content composable, and then let's have this like take in a T, and you know, maybe an index as well. Although I'm wondering, maybe, not sure if I want to do int or not. Okay, so let's have that as like one thing, and then foreground content, call it that. And we'll do the same thing here. And let's see, what would we do? Well, I'm wondering, because like it might make sense just to ask for an image instead of let it do this whole thing. But I don't know, we could just end up passing, could like pass this through. Well, no. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Yeah. So let's just say say this is gonna have a column, and we'll do this for the whole thing. All right, so now like we're rendering this column, and then we're gonna, like, you know, delegate to the parent whatever they want to do for the background thing, which in this case is going to be this like coil image, and so then here, you know, I'll say index and movie or something, which, you know, this is just an element. Let's call it an item. All right, and then the aspect ratio, you know, that'll be dealt with by the consumer of this. And then I wonder, I'm just gonna have this do like fill max size. And we want to replace this with a line. It's deprecated. Sorry, looks like there's a few questions here. Let me try and go through them. So Archie asks, hi Leland, is there a way to scope a view model to a particular composable? Yeah, so it depends what you mean. But like basically we have a there's a view model composable, you know, VM equals view model, and so this this composable here, it what it does, oh, it won't let me look at the sources. That's a bummer. But basically what this will do is it'll look at the view model provider that's in scope. Like, so basically there's like a view model provider ambient, and that gets provided by Compose automatically. It's like usually your activity or something if you have like a component activity. And then it'll create a view model with that scope, and it'll have basically it'll sort of utilize the lifecycle owner that's available, and so that should like persist across activity restarts and stuff like that. If you wanted the view model to like have the same lifecycle as the composable, so if it would essentially like get disposed of whenever the composable gets disposed, you can do that, but we don't actually have a good, like a nice plug and play solution for that. But like you could create a lifecycle owner, you know, you could call it like a composable lifecycle owner or something, and you could implement that using the lifecycle of the composable, and have it fire like the on start on stop of the lifecycle owner, and then that view model function would probably work as you'd expect. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but let me know. Do we have any sort of MobX approach in Android? I've been away from Android dev for a while. So actually, like the state like solution that Compose provides is it's very similar to MobX in a lot of ways, I guess. So I would recommend you checking that out. There's I think there's like a state code lab or tutorial or something in the compose pathway that I think would explain more if you're interested in that. So Redux, MobX, and other patterns aren't as popular as they should be in the Android sphere. Yeah, I mean, if you feel that way, you should consider making one yourself. Like I think that there's a lot of patterns that the Android community has come up with that are kind of inspired by some of these things. But yeah, I mean, like MobX had some inspiration for like our state system, as did some other things. And Redux, would be easy to build, and have it work with Compose. I'm not sure that I would recommend like something that's like identical to Redux, but definitely there are some good ideas there that I think you can use in some capacity. Okay, so yeah, I remember seeing RxJava becoming very popular, and I always thought it was super and unnecessarily complicated. Yeah, I mean, I don't see RxJava as like a state. Like, it seems it's not solving the same problems that like MobX and stuff are. It's like a, I don't know. So I wouldn't, commenting about that, like, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And I think the use of RxJava is probably going down a bit, as I think more people are in this sphere are using coroutines and flow and stuff like that. So that's one thing to consider. You can extract the loop content in carousel to carousel item. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing here. What are your thoughts on composable as a whole screen smart component or dumb component? Does it make sense to pass viewModel from screen to children or access it through viewModel? This is a good question. It's probably like there's probably more to consider here than I'm gonna go into in this stream, but there's so one, I think having a composable represent a whole screen, I think makes a lot of sense. I think that in general you want to provide like you want to provide the data to a composable that it needs, but not more. And so if the composable needs the entire view model, then that might be a reasonable thing to pass to it. But if it's just part of the screen and it doesn't need the whole view model, then it might make sense to scope it more narrowly. And yeah, I don't know. You should sort of be thinking of it that way, I think. One of the patterns that we talked about like on the stream was with Mavericks, and as I've like learned more about Mavericks, there are some things that I've started to appreciate about it. And one of the things I like is how it separates, basically it has this like view model and this state object. And I think if I were using Mavericks today in like a Compose application, at like the screen level type thing, what I might do is I might grab like a Mavericks like view model and state object, and the state object is like nice and immutable, and I might pass it down to a number of things, and then for some like interactions that need to trigger events on the view model, instead of passing the whole view model, I might just have that composable accept a lambda, and then I'll just have the lambda then capture the view model via lexical scope, like as a closure, and then trigger whatever action there. And that's probably, I think that would be like a pretty sane and like very scalable approach. Oh, is there audio issues? Okay, AirPods. All right, good. Well, thanks for letting me know anyway if there was an issue. Okay, what do we have here? So Archie says, "Hi Leland, this is a follow-up on my question. If I create my own view model store, I still don't know where to clear it since dispose is called when device is rotated." Yeah, so it depends. I mean, so if you're asking about how to scope it to the composable, then I think this is kind of what you would want. But it now sounds like from your question that it's not what you want. So I don't know. I guess in any event, I think this is a good question. If you want to follow up more with me, like if you have a gist or something that like some code that you're trying and it doesn't do what you want it to do, let me know. Like you can tweet at me on Twitter or something, and I'd like to help you out with that, because I think I think you should be able to do what you're wanting to do, and I'd be interested in helping out. Okay, what else do we have? Brian asks, how do we improve layout performance? My lazy column 4 gives me ANRs. Well, that if it's giving you an ANR, that sounds more like a bug than a performance issue. But if this is a problem, I mean, I would file a bug. Like I know I sometimes hate giving that answer because it feels like a cop-out answer, but you shouldn't be getting ANRs. I believe that you can get some bad performance with lazy column 4 right now, and there might be a variety of things that's related to, but in general it shouldn't be that bad. So there might be something else going on. So I would file a bug. Okay. So let's go back to what we were doing here. So we've got this new carousel thing that we're setting up. And so now the movie poster, this is gonna be getting we're gonna be using that lambda for this. So I'm gonna just pull all this in wholesale. So then here we're gonna be rendering the foreground content with the index, and I'm gonna call it an item here. Right. What's it unhappy about? Oh, this should be items. And then we should figure something out about this item width kind of thing here. That probably will end up being a parameter. Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll we'll have that be like an intrinsic part of the carousel. Like that. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're giving, I guess we're giving the overall thing like a black background. Realistically, that could be a configurable parameter here. And then I don't like how we're using the screen width here. This is not great. We should probably tweak that. Let's see. So this seems reasonable. Now let's try refactoring. We'll refactor our main composable here to use this instead. So we'll say carousel items be movies, and then I don't like using the trailing lambda if there's like multiple. The foreground, and then this will be index and movie for both of them. That seems pretty good. And then we'll go ahead and grab, so this coil image for the background. And then in this case, we're not going to be doing any of that. Basically, we want it to fill the width and then have an aspect ratio. That should be enough for us. And then we just end up not using that. And then we'll call our movie poster here. And we won't be doing any of this, so we end up just not passing in a modifier at all. Okay. And let's see if that works. There's definitely some other things in here that we probably want to think of more as configuration than like the true behavior of the composable. So Jonah V says, meta question. I heard that in the early days, Compose went through multiple iterations before landing on the current compiler plugin solution. Can you tell the story on how the team decided that a Kotlin compiler plugin was the right solution for this new UI toolkit, and what other solutions were considered at the time? Yeah, so depending on what you heard, like there's different stages of the project, but basically, early on, there were sort of two projects. There's one which was essentially to kind of reimagine the UI toolkit, and in particular, there were a couple of like core design goals. One was to potentially like embrace Kotlin a bit, like maybe be a little bit more modern and sort of, you know, fix some of what we considered mistakes in the older toolkit, or in the existing toolkit. And in addition to that, one of the big goals was to have the toolkit be unbundled from the underlying platform. So the idea there is that like we had a lot of problems with like the the UI toolkit being baked into the platform. Like whenever there was a bug fix or like any level of iteration, it was years essentially before users could come to expect that. And so the support library and like Android X and everything was fairly successful. And so we kind of wanted to follow that strategy of building the toolkit unbundled from the platform. And then there was a separate project kind of happening, which was exploring how to build a like declarative reactive like runtime and like UI framework with Kotlin and like as a compiler plugin. And initially, so this is the project that I was working on. And so we were basically trying to say, okay, like if we wanted to build a declarative paradigm UI toolkit and like have Kotlin be the target language, what could we do? And we explored a lot of different things, but like in the beginning, the kind of the thought was, okay, well, the view system will probably be what we end up targeting, and so it was like slightly separate from this idea of like a new UI toolkit, and we ended up kind of merging the two projects in a way, and so sort of saying, okay, well, like here's this new unbundled Kotlin UI toolkit, and a lot of their goals ended up being the same as our goals, which they ended up landing on, okay, well, if we're going to build this new toolkit, we should probably have it be this like declarative component-based model, and so like obviously we were working on making that model work really, really well with Kotlin. And so our goals were very much aligned. And so we decided to, instead of views being the primary target, to have this system be the primary target, because that was, it made a lot more sense, especially because since the view system wasn't really intended to be used in this way, in a declarative fashion, there was a lot of like kind of, tricks or like, unfortunate solutions that we would have to do to make the views sort of behave predictably. And so it became much more interesting when we started saying, okay, well, what if the whole toolkit was built targeting this paradigm, from top to bottom? And so that was really exciting. And it just turned out that it was really, really good timing for these two projects to kind of have been in their infancy at the same time. And it, like, there's just been so many things about this project that like I think are just incredibly lucky. Like the timing was just there, and it just made sense. And so there was a lot of buy-in and everything, and so it worked really well. So I don't know. That's at least my perspective of the story. So yeah, for what it is. Okay. What did I want to do? I guess I want to try running this, I guess. So let me do this thing where I uninstall the app because of this issue, and let's try installing it. Yeah, we only have 30 minutes left, but I really wanted to get to this, some of this transition, so hopefully we'll be able to get some of that. Okay, so it looks like this worked for the most part. So we're good there. Let's add in this like button on the bottom here. So basically we want the button to be we're gonna put the button like on top of the carousel here because it's actually independent of it. And we call it buy tickets button. And we're gonna raise the movie poster up a little bit so that it's positioned in a way where that button can, you know, sit above it. And here's our movie poster. Maybe it makes sense to do that from above. Yeah. Well, no, because we want the background to be there. So we'll give it that padding, and then I'm gonna give it some more padding from the bottom, and you know, we'll just say 60 dp start. That's uninstall. Is this what? Didn't I uninstall it? Uh-oh. Okay. What is going on? Oh, wait, it did work. Oh, okay. I just saw red and thought it crashed. So, well, for one, the button needs to be aligned on the bottom, which makes sense. And then we'll say alignment dot bottom center. Do we not give this a modifier? Yeah. So let's say modifier. And then pass it in here. And I'm not really sure that we should probably move that up top anyway. So we'll fill max width. And I'm gonna give it some padding here. Let's say 20 dp all around. And uninstall. Okay. Yeah, so we actually want if you look at the design here, so the buy ticket button, it's got an all uppercase transform, so, you know, we can do that. It's got a little bit more height, but also the width is intended to kind of fit inside of the poster, but it is like it's outside the poster. So like, you know, as you flip through the posters, the button stays still. So like we're composing it in the right spot, but we probably shouldn't, like this fill max width thing is probably not what we want. And so this, you know, kind of brings about like what should the carousel be responsible for? And in here, you know, so maybe there's like a default poster, you know, size and spacing and stuff like that, but we should probably make that configurable. And let's see. So that basically we can pass in a width, like a known width, to the carousel, and then also size the button explicitly as well so that it fits. So what do we calculate here? We're basically just sort of arbitrarily saying that the poster width is 60% of the screen width, which is an arbitrary choice and you know, probably not the right one. Like in reality, we'd want to, you know, our design would probably spec this in a different way. And I'm not a great designer, so this is why it's a little bit hard to like just copy these like dribble designs when the designs come to you just in the form of like this, you know, this little movie of like you playing with the app. And in reality, the designer probably had a very clear intent to say, you know, this carousel item here should have this width, you know, and you know, that width, maybe it's a function of the screen size, or maybe it's a specific width or whatever, but you know, they have that intention and I don't necessarily know it just by looking at the video. And so it's one of the unfortunate sort of aspects of doing it this way. But I'm gonna, let's see, let's pull at least this out. And let's see, where's offset used? Gonna pull this out. So we have our poster spacing in pixels. I'm probably gonna use that here. So what I'm thinking is, so we'll accept a all the carousel really needs to know is the spacing between items. It doesn't actually need to know how wide the item is itself. And so let's call that spacing, and it'll accept a DP, and we'll convert it here. So poster spacing px equals density spacing dot pixels, and then that's everything that the carousel needs to know. It really only cares about the spacing, and so I'm going to rename that to spacing px. And the reason we're converting it to pixels here is because a lot of the calculations that we're doing based on the scroll position is done in pixels. But the user, the consumer of the carousel component doesn't care about pixels. And so it makes more sense for them to define it in terms of DP, which is one thing that I like about this. So let's say so we have poster width and then spacing. Oops. So we've got our spacing, which will just be our poster width plus 20 DP on each side or whatever. So now we don't need density up here, and we don't need that. So now this like weird arbitrary choice of like 0.6 times our screen, like that's still there, but it's outside of the carousel component, and so that makes me feel better. And we can just pass this in now. Okay, let's see, does this all make sense? Oh, did it end up using this somewhere here? Yeah, so now it's becoming a little more clear. Like we don't actually want to set the width of this here. This width can kind of be whatever, like it doesn't matter. Like the width here should be determined by the foreground content, because they passed us the spacing and you know, the fact that it's the poster width, like that's up to the consumer. And so then we'll go back here, and for the movie poster, we'll pass in the modifier.width, and then this will be the poster width here. And that makes, you know, some sense. Now we've defined the specific width for the movie poster, and with that we now know how to size our buy ticket button, right? And so here we can say that this also is the poster width, and so it's the poster, like the button size plus this padding, that's the poster width. And so then this button will be sized like inside of the poster size here, and so that should be kind of what we want. And Then I want to go back in here, and this should actually, I'm gonna add some vertical padding here. Of like I don't know, 10 dp or whatever, and so that'll give the button some more height. And then, but this also needs yeah. So let me see. I think that might be good. Okay, so now you can kind of see that like the buy ticket button is hanging out here in the middle, and as we scroll through each one, that's like fine. And so I mean, so here's like an interesting problem, right? Is we inside of the on click of this buy ticket button, we want to then like navigate to the page for that movie. Yeah, so sky color, this is exactly what I was just gonna say. So like when we click the buy ticket button, we want to navigate to that movie, and so we kind of need to know what the selected index is. And so the carousel API kind of needs to be able to deal with that, right? And what I'd like to be able to say is so we have selected index, and I'm going to make that a mutable state, and we'll start with 0. And then here we'll have selected index equals selected index on yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll call it selected index. And so then I'll have on selected index change, and we'll have this be that. And so now we need to add this API to the carousel. So we'll have selected index int on selected index change. And so we'll need to kind of handle this. So we've got our offset here, and offset is going to be like this, animated thing. And I'm going to change. I think I kind of want, I might want to make this an animated int instead of or an animated float instead of just a float, mutable state of float. But we'll see. So what we kind of want to do is like We'll have this, we'll trigger this handler kind of as things change. Animated offset, animated float. Reasonable here. Let's see here. Animated. Oh, whoops. Animated offset. That's snap to. We would end up using this instead. Assumed. Target. Okay. And then this would be, oops, animated offset that value. And so this starts to get like a little bit tricky, but I think it's an interesting use case. So let's go through it. So offset that value. Where else is this used? Used here and here. It's interesting because one of the things I want to do is try and get it so that offset isn't read in this composable. So I'm going to move this calculation here. Animated value. What is that saying? Oh. Get rid of this Java. What would be this thing? Math. All right. So that moves those two in there. And then this is fine. Wonder if that should be configurable. But okay, so now offset is only read here to get index fraction. is animated offset initial value the same as the passed in selected index? Yeah, so it's not quite the same thing. I mean, they're like, the animated offset is sort of like a transient value, and the selected index we want to think of as like semantically like what the user thinks of as the current index, and so we'll be, what we want to do is we want to handle when when like when the user of the carousel, the consumer of the carousel composable, when they programmatically change the selected index, we want to sort of handle that appropriately, you know, and so that might be by animating over to that index, yeah, and we'll kind of deal with that. And okay, so what I want to do is I want to figure out how we can update this index fraction is used in here. I don't know how to get my sources back. Definitely need those. Where's that? Okay. Selected index. Okay. Change that. So what I'm wondering is if, I mean, I'm using this, wait, okay. So I'm using this, like, creating this shape in the composition and passing it into the straw layer. And like, it'd be nice just to make this, you know, composable, maybe like a little bit more snappy or something. If we could just deal with that in the draw. And I want to see if these sources show up. This is gross. Jetified UI. I don't know why my sources aren't showing up here. That is frustrating. Let's go into here. Simple draw layer modifier. All right. You're looking for a callback function on draw layer. Yeah, I thought that draw layer I guess is like a more fundamental thing than I thought it was. And I'm trying to think. I think actually what I'm gonna do is this is carousel, or like carousel background draw layer modifier. This is kind of interesting. I kind of want to see if this works, partially because like, so I guess let me like clarify a few things. Like one, doing this isn't really necessary. I know it'll eke out like a little bit more performance, but like right now the performance of this carousel like isn't bad even on this like low end device that I have. But like I want to go down this path because I want to see what the API in its current form lets me do. And I want to see if doing this is possible. And what I'm trying to do is to see if I can get animated offset to only end up causing draw invalidations. And if we can do that, then that would, because we don't actually need to pay the cost of like composition and layout in order to do this. And so that would be like a nice little win. And I want to go through the pain of like figuring out like if the API is flexible enough to do that. Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you, Baduali. You say, I think YouTube comments aren't showing anymore. I have the same bug with sources since I updated the last canary. Really annoying. Yeah, okay, thanks for mentioning that. I'll try and surface this to someone if it hasn't been surfaced already, because that is super annoying. Okay. So we are what are we setting here? So we're setting the alpha and the shape and clip. So we're just going to return true here. Alpha and shape. Okay. So we should be able to bit fraction out. Interesting. So maybe we want index. Oops. Get fill turn. I kind of want to. I guess like essentially I'm moving this logic into the modifier. Kind of interesting. But okay, so I can do this. And get index fraction. All right. If I do this, then basically I can take some of this, move that in here. Wonder if get index fraction. So yeah, so this would be it. So I want that I would say. So index fraction equals get index fraction. And then all of this basically stays the same. And then doing something similar for opacity. Okay. It'll be interesting to see if this works. So now what I want to do is I'm actually just going to make this a function here. Fun modifier.carousel background equals object. Okay. This then. So if I do this, we can take carousel background and essentially replace draw layer here. And then instead, I just need to pass in index and get index fraction. And this is going to be this. And instead of offset, we're going to use the animated offset depth value here. Okay, that looks like it works. And so if I'm not mistaken, I think we should have moved all of the reads off of out of composition, which is kind of neat. And I'm actually, so yeah, let's just run this right now and see if it works, because I want to make sure I just did all of that right. Okay. So there's some weirdness going on. What's happening here? So we can get to Joker, and then when I let go here, it goes back to 0. So I think something got off in this logic. I don't know what though. That to target. Oh, lower bound. This is what I want here, instead of consumed. So I think that was the issue. So let's try restarting the app again. Yeah, so SkyColor asked, does Snap2 update the value of the animated value? And yes, it does. It's basically like setting .value. It sort of does it like immediately instead of animating to it. But what we'll see is that because now it's an animated value, we'll have the ability to animate smoothly to another value, which we might use when the selected index changes when it gets passed in. So, all right. So now we're good. I mean, we still have the weird issue with the poster, but it looks like, you know, this is going here. I actually wonder. So we can probably. See. Yeah, so I mean, again, so keep in mind this is a really low-end phone, but it's, you know, it's handling all of this with you know, probably. I mean, so it's not dropping any frames. It looks like it's, you know, taking about 8 milliseconds per frame on average. I think there's some stuff going on. What is going on here? So, yeah, I guess if I fling really hard, there's some clear jank that's happening. I'm not sure what's causing that. It might be from the image rendering, or it might be something else. I'm not sure, but we'd have to look at that individually, which we can do another time. But overall, I mean, this feels nice. If it wasn't for this like flashing of the image, then this would feel pretty nice. But so next we're gonna get the ticket stuff handled, the ticket button, and we'll use this on selected change and stuff like that and handle that. but it is 12:15, so so I've been streaming for a little over 2 hours now, and I think I'm gonna leave it there. I've got some sort of household chores and stuff like that I want to do today, so that is all we'll do. But we'll be back on tomorrow working on this more, and so hopefully, you know, what I'll try and do is before the next stream, I'll try and figure out what's happening with this like resource overlay thing, so that we don't have to reinstall every time. And what were the other issues? Oh, and then maybe this like these not being able to dive into sources and stuff. Maybe I'll go back to a different studio canary or something, but that'll hopefully make tomorrow's stream a little more streamlined if we can figure that out. In the meantime, thanks everyone for joining in, and you know, see you tomorrow. Cheers.